Okay, this is DBTV. I'm here with two heavyweights in the wine world. We've got on my left, we've got Monty Waldin.
Me.
Hello, the biodynamic winemaker and writer, and to my right, Dr. Richard Smart, the viticulturalist and global consultant on viticultural methods. And we are here at WSET in London Bridge for what's about to kick off the great grape debate about biodynamics and organics. And Monty obviously talking in favour. So Monty, how do you think biodynamic farming actually leads to better tasting wines?
Well, I think it's mainly a respect for the soil and also the whole sort of farm organism. I mean, one of the aims of biodynamics is that your farm is self-sustaining. We talk a lot about terroir in wine. Obviously, the less external inputs you put on your vineyard to grow that wine would seem to me, logically, to at least produce a wine that's going to reflect its site.
Yeah.
Now, whether the wine is good or bad, or whether you like it or not, is kind of irrelevant. I mean, if we're talking about terroir, I think self-sustaining farm organisms, which is the biodynamic ideal, is the way to go.
Okay, so you think the biodynamic method actually kind of gives more of a sense of place to wines?
Yeah, for sure it gives more of a sense of place to wine. But what you need to do, it's not just a question of shutting the farm gate, it's a question of shutting the farm gate and really knowing what you're doing, really understanding your terroir.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all for creating a self-sustaining farm organism. But that's the joy of it. It allows every farmer to become much more autonomous and much more creative as a farmer. And the more creative you are as a farmer, the more interesting I think your wine should be, all things being equal.
Okay. And do you think industrial winemakers enslave their grapes? Talked about enslavement.
Well, I think that's kind of two very loaded words you've put in there, industrial. I mean, you can have industrial organic or biodynamic farmers as well. I think I do generally think in the wine trade we do sort of see ourselves as slightly separate from the rest of agriculture because we're growing this crop that does have the alcoholic effect. It's not like growing wheat or for bread. So we do sort of put ourselves on a plane slightly higher possibly than other farmers. I just think that the less inputs that you have on your farm, whether it's fossil fuels or fertilisers or weed killers, the more reflective your wine will be of the site, and the more sustaining you are, the less environmental impact you're going to have as a wine grower.
Okay, moving on to Richard, you in your kind of précis before the event talked about why biodynamic winemakers using emotional black magic to get their message across. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think of the words you just used, Lucy. What were they? Enslaving? What was the other word you used?
Industrial.
Industrial. They're emotive words. Come on, Lucy, you can do better than that.
But, didn't you say that they do use emotional black magic, the biodynamic winemakers?
Oh, well, I think that there is a lot of falsification, fancy words that suit their purpose. I must say that I don't find a particular problem with what Monty has just said. The concept of biodynamics is very much oriented to place of origin.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can do that under conventional viticulture as well. And the concept of a stamp of time and place of origin of wine is part of the reason why wine is such a charming beverage, so interesting.
But do you think the press is giving too much attention and credibility to the whole biodynamic movement?
Oh, without doubt, far too much. I suggested in my press release that they equally might give as much attention to those winemakers who have left-handed children as their firstborn. I mean, give me a break. Why do we need all this credence to organic and biodynamic? You know, people can do what they want in their vineyards. So what?
Monty, have you got any reply for that?
Well, I mean, I think in a way, Richard is a little bit like the sort of kid whose toys have been taken away. You know, the conventional viticulturalist. That's he's world famous. Everybody knows him, and I think from my perspective, I would say that Richard's done a great job. But now we're moving on, and just statistically, more and more vineyards are going organic and biodynamic, and some are doing it for marketing reasons, there's no question about that, Richard's right about that. And some do use overly emotive language, and all of us, including myself, have fallen victim to that in the past. But if more and more wine growers are doing it and making an economic success of their vineyards, then I think that signals to me a sea change in how we're farming. And it's not just wine growers that are doing it, it's people that grow carrots and corn and other farm crops as well. So I think the worm is turning. It's really a question of how quickly we want that worm, as a very biodynamic concept, to turn. Are we going to help wine growers to become, and the wine industry to become greener, or are we just going to sit back and hinder that?
Mm-hmm. For me, the thing with, well, I suppose to use another term, natural wines, is they're very hit and miss. Why should the consumer take the risk?
Well, actually, I think you'll find there was a whole generation of consumers that were disenfranchised by over-sulphury wines, particularly women, actually, based on my sort of empirical experience of tasting with at the Natural Wine Fair, for example, in London. I actually think that the quality of natural wines is really, really high. Where I think they need to up their game is to actually have a set of standards and an independent audit, because again, you've got bandwagon jumpers there. I think you're finding a lot of people that love these wines and are not only buying them, but buying them again and again and again. So why should that be seen as a negative thing in the wine trade?
Okay.
I think that's a very, very positive thing.
Sure. Finally, back to Richard. So I think, do you not believe that biodynamics actually leads to better wines, better tasting, more environmentally friendly? And if not, what's the alternative?
Well, they could. And I can understand reasons why these processes could produce better wines, but I think inevitably they do not. They might, but they do not. What's the alternative? Well, I'm a scientist who spent 40 years studying how to improve wine quality in the vineyard. How much time have you got, Lucy? I can give you a couple of hours on this.
Okay. All right, well, have a great debate. May the best man win. Richard and Monty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.